IVM.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges Sledges Cricket Podcast. This is DJ, your host this week, and I've got with me Varun Garg and Ashwin Garg. How are you doing, guys? Varun, how are you keeping this week?
All good, man. Just watching some of Ashes cricket, but having a good week so far.
Yeah, and we'll come to a little bit about the Ashes later, but it's been an interesting week in the cricketing world. We'll talk about the India-West Indies series primarily. We'll talk a little bit about the Ashes in terms of comparing the Fab Four or Fab Three, so to speak. Obviously, the big news this week is the appointment of the Indian team coach. So we will definitely be covering that and a little bit about the first test preview. But first, guys, let's just take a step back. Let's go back to where we left you last week. 2 ODIs had taken place. The third ODI was going to take place later. And India actually won the 3 ODI series 2-0 because the first one was washed out. The West Indies, it was a rain-affected match. The West Indies batted first, got 240 for 7. India got 256 for 4. So on paper, quite an easy victory for India. But let's talk through a few things that happened in that game. First of all, the Gayle storm hit India, and in particular, Khalil Ahmed. Let's talk first about Khalil Ahmed. Ashwin, your thoughts about Khalil Ahmed? Does he deserve his spot in this Indian cricket team?
Yeah, look, I think we've talked about this a little once before. I think there is always, just in white ball cricket, an inherent advantage to having a left arm seamer. So I get why they're trying him. I just, like I've been saying, I think he needs a little bit more time at the domestic level. I think they seem to have taken a liking to him. He's probably got a good work ethic. I know he runs and hits the deck hard. I don't think he's quite at the level of the rest of Indian fast bowlers. Maybe 10 years ago, he would have been a first choice pick. But when you've got the Bumrahs and Bhuvis of the world, I don't see Khalil making a full strength side at the moment. So good on them to try. Like I said, important to have left arm options, but I don't think he's at the level we need him to be yet.
Varun, is Khalil in your first 11?
No, Khalil is not even in my second 11, so I don't know what he's doing in the team. But I agree with everything Ashwin said. That would have been my response exactly.
Yeah, I find it quite hard that in a world where Khalil plays, Saini actually doesn't play. And I'd love to have watched Saini after his showing in the T20 series, playing in the ODI game. But I guess we'll have to wait a little bit longer for Saini to make his ODI debut. But what happened actually, and why Khalil came up in my mind, was what Chris Gayle did to him. And, like Khalil does the phone call celebration. It felt like to me that he needed to call 911 or 999 basically with what Gayle was doing it, because the Gayle storm really took to him. And he scored 72 of 41. He batted absolutely brilliantly. He was given a free hit to kind of get the juices flowing by Shami, and he just went completely berserk. And it was like watching a T20 game. It was fantastic to watch. He really enjoyed smashing Khalil all over the place. I think he'd gone for 44 runs in 4 overs or something like that. And then when he got out, the Indian players kind of gave him a farewell. He was almost given a guard of honor. He put his his helmet on his bat handle with the Jamaica flag and stuff. Ashwin, I'm a little bit confused. Did you watch his post-game interview? And when he was asked whether he's retired or not, is Chris Gayle actually retired?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I think nobody knows. Kohli was tweeting tributes to him, calling him a good servant of the game and has served his country and the sport really well. So I think we all assumed he's retired. I wasn't watching when he got out, but it looks like all the Indian players ran up and shook his hand. And it definitely looked like he's retired. Let's not forget, he actually was deemed to be retired prior to this, right? So him playing this series was a surprise because initially he'd said he's done, he's not playing any more ODIs for West Indies. Then during the World Cup at some point, he said, no, actually, I'll talk to you guys again after the India series. So Chris Gayle being Chris Gayle, probably messing with the media a little, but just having some fun as he's done on the pitch for so many years.
Varun, do you think Chris Gayle should actually retire? I know you've got some strong feelings about some Indian players who you think should have retired previously, but is Chris Gayle actually outstaying his welcome?
Wait, maybe Chris Gayle can go serve with the army for a couple of months.
Yeah, Varun, I'm again going to let that one go to the keeper.
No, I'm not sure, to be honest. I think Chris Gayle has always had a career like this where in a 3-game series he'll hit a 70s odd in one and he'll get out 10 of 30 balls in the other. So it's not unusual to me. I think I can't think of too many better openers right now, and I think it's going to be up to Chris Gayle, honestly, when he retires. I think he's doing fine, especially given his last innings.
Yeah, interestingly, he hasn't been picked in the test squad, so I think that's it for him for the test game. But we'll see whether he continues to play T20s. There's obviously a T20 World Cup coming up next year in Australia. And his ODI career doesn't seem to be over, because he told the presenter that he'll be playing until further notice. So very interesting that. But Ashwin, you raise an interesting point about people serving in the army and stuff. But I wanted to talk about their replacement, a guy called Rishabh Pant. Let's talk through his innings, this third ODI. It wasn't a very long innings. It lasted one ball precisely. He came down the track and tried to slog a left-arm spinner for 6, his first ball. Got out exactly the way the previous left-hander had got out before him, Shikhar Dhawan, caught at mid-off, actually, not even clearing the circle. Ashwin, have we given Rishabh Pant... Are we firstly biased towards him? On this podcast, we all actually like Rishabh Pant a lot, because we like the way he plays his cricket. We like the character that he is. It helps that he plays for Delhi, the Delhi Daredevils, the Delhi Capitals. But are we maybe giving him too long a rope, and is he hanging himself with that rope?
Well, that's a great question and well worded. Look, I do not think we're giving him too long a rope just yet. I think there's a lot of different things with Rishabh Pant. And when you're watching him, it's not that he gets out of good balls. It's not that he gets out of average shots that just went wrong. They are so ugly. I mean, yeah, there was just no way to describe it better than you did. But it was just so ugly. And that makes it so much more painful to watch a batsman who's talented. Especially often when Kohli's on the other end, you just see Kohli's face fall when Pant does something so ridiculous. So to answer your specific question, I don't think we're giving him too long a rope. We are so trigger happy as Indian cricket fans and the media in particular that at saying, all right, 2 matches failed, let's move on to the next guy. And I think just like with Iyer, we're going to talk about him, but when somebody does well for 2 matches, we're already talking about him being the next guaranteed slot in the side, and then he'll fail. He will. It's inevitable, and we're going to ask for his head on a platter. So let's hope Pant finds his form. Let's not forget he was the guy that took us to victory in the third T20 with a really nice 65 odd. So very painful to watch him, but I don't think we're giving him too long a rope just yet.
And Varun, I know you're a Rishabh Pant fan, and I was actually particularly getting over the disappointment of waiting for this guy to come into bat. He bats at number 4 in limited overs. I was actually looking forward to watching him bat, and he gets out in that way. And I mean, like, there are a lot of 4-letter words that rhyme with Pant, which we can't actually use on this podcast, because obviously it's family friendly and whatnot. But we got some good puns out of it. Ritwik actually tweeted in saying, Team India's punt on Rishabh is not working, which was pretty good, I thought. But Varun, having been a Viru fan, are you being transported back maybe half a decade into the days of watching Virender Sehwag bat? But at least he opened the batting, right?
Yeah, I definitely am. I think the biggest difference, like you said, is he opened the batting. So you weren't waiting for an hour for him to come in. There was no kind of, I really can't wait. When will this guy get out? I want to see Pant come in. I want to see him finish the inning. I think the difference is Sehwag opened and you knew very early on what was going to happen. So you managed your expectations accordingly. It was incredibly frustrating. With Rishabh Pant, man, I think there hasn't been enough of a rope that has been given to him. So I don't know where the rope is long enough question is coming from. It's still early days. I mean, I'm going to make an open call here to say, I think Rishabh Pant needs a personal coach, and I'm very available to fly down and help him out. DJ, I know you've seen Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar. Amir Khan was also like this in the start. Once you have a coach with some dedication and you start running the miles and doing the sit-ups and the push-ups, anything is possible, man. So give him a little bit of time.
So are you calling yourself Ayesha Jhulka, basically?
I forgot her name. I was actually thinking, what is her name? And I was going to say, I can be Ayesha Jhulka for Rishabh Pant, then I forgot her name.
Yeah, I can totally see Varun driving his Jeep and Rishabh Pant running behind him.
Yeah, and me holding up the 5-kilometer sign and the 6-kilometer sign. And yeah, man.
Yeah, we've seen Pant put up quite a lot of fitness videos recently as well. So he is taking his fitness very seriously. Hopefully he takes his batting as seriously, because I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated with his thing. And we've actually, to be fair, we've previously spoken on this podcast. Maybe it's with the way the management is using him. It's he kind of, are we batting him in the right place? Should he bat at 4? There's discussion whether he should bat at 5, whether he should bat at 6, whether he should open the batting. this management seems to be hell-bent on batting him at 4, which brings me to our next question. Shreyas Iyer has batted at 5 in that game. He came in after Rishabh Pant got out, batted with the skipper, played an absolutely beautiful knock, which I thought was one of the best knocks I've seen from an Indian player for a really long time. It was an innings that I thought just smacked of class. He got 65 runs in 41 balls. He had 3 sixes. He hit 5 sixes, I think, with the just huge sixes. The one he hit straight was fantastic. Again, Delhi Daredevils, Delhi Capitals captain. Varun, I'll come to you first on this. Is there a case for Shreyas Iyer to be batting at 4?
Absolutely, DJ. There's no doubt. In fact, it really upsets me that the team management did not make him bat at 4. However, again, due to some very silly shots, it almost felt like he was the effective number 4 for India. He batted absolutely fantastically. He in the first game, we had said it's only the first innings. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. The second game, I mean, even a Kohli came out and said that this guy made it easy for me. I'm very, very happy. He seems to be the answer for the middle order that we're looking for. I think India's team balance still needs a lot of debate and discussion, which we won't get into today. But just from an Iyer perspective, I'm extremely happy.
Ashwin, yeah, hindsight is 2020, right? But would having an Iyer at number 4 instead of a Vijay Shankar at number 4 or a Punt at number 4 in the World Cup have made a difference, do you think?
Yeah, hindsight 2020, exactly. But I think it definitely could have. I think if you really think about it, when you go through the approach the BCCI had, and we've talked about this so much, but really quickly, they prioritized and picked Rayudu at 4 because they said, no, we're going to go with somebody who's older, but we're going to go with experience. That was the message about a year before the World Cup. And then over time, that kind of disappeared. Rayudu was obviously not selected in the end. And then they replaced him with 2 potential options, both Shankar and Pant, who are both great players, but completely inexperienced. And so from my perspective, I think if your goal was to go with a quality number 4 batsman who is less experienced, Iyer, maybe even a Manish Pandey, those kind of names should have popped up to the front. So hindsight is 2020. I definitely think he could have made a mark. But, we talk about him being a little bit older than the Shubman Gill, Prithvi Shaw class of players, but let's not forget he's still 24, so he's got a long potential career ahead of him, and I'm really glad to see him in the mix.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to point out, actually, because he's only 24. Rishabh Pant, yes, we say he's a young player, he's 21, right? There's only a 3-year difference between the two of them, but the maturity that Shreyas Iyer kind of brings to his batting, I think, is just fantastic to see. I think it's helped him being Delhi Capitals captain as well, because it's that added responsibility, and he played a fantastic innings. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about, and I want your thoughts on this, Varun, is his game against the short ball, because I was a bit surprised that Kemar Roach didn't actually test out his short ball game.
Fair, DJ. I didn't watch too much of this series. And I think, to be honest, in the IPL, one doesn't get too much of a sense of short ball weaknesses on Indian pitches. So I haven't seen him enough against the short ball. But if it is something that he needs to work on, I do feel he's mature enough to pick it up. I think Shreyas Iyer is the kind of guy now who probably is seeing that for the next 4 years, he has a golden run and golden opportunity to make this slot his own. And, he will tackle any kind of short ball issue if there is one.
And Ashwin, what do you make of his stats? He's batted 7 times in one-day internationals. He's got 4 50s, but the majority of his innings have come against the West Indies and Sri Lanka. He averages only 24 against South Africa. So are we getting too excited too quickly, maybe?
I mean, I just think you can't blame him for not having played against England, Australia, and South Africa when you haven't really played him much, right? So I don't know exactly how many games he played against South Africa, but in 7 innings to make 4 50s, if they were against Sri Lanka and West Indies, it's because that's who we played him against. So I don't think we're getting too excited too quickly. I think anybody who says he's our number 4 permanently or guaranteed the slot is probably jumping the gun a little. He does need to prove himself in different conditions against different opposition. But I mean, he's earned his shot for sure.
The other thing I also wanted to say is there are lots of guys in the wings, but none of them are coming across as a strong middle order bat. And that's why I made the comment where I said, I really feel he can look at this as an opportunity for the next 4 years, because whether it's Mayank Agarwal, KL Rahul, Shubman Gill, Prithvi Shaw, I mean, between ages of 20 to probably 28, they're all top order batsmen. And there's suddenly a niche that this guy can create for himself. I think his only competition right now is a Manish Pandey, because even KL Rahul is not that comfortable at 4 and you were slotting him in. So I mean, that's just my perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fair. He is from the Mumbai school of batsmanship, the Khadus batsman that Mumbai produces. And we'll have to see what he does. I'm quietly confident and hopeful because he, as you said, he's only 24. He's got time ahead of him. He's got class, obviously, on his side. And if he's got any technical deficiencies, he's got time to work on them. And for King Viv and Virat Kohli to actually praise a player in their, I think, 7th innings, I think it is just really telling of what they think of this guy. So I'm really hoping that Shreyas actually fills that void that has been created. And he's a great T20 player as well. So good signs for us for the T20 World Cup. Punt will obviously be kicking himself after watching what Iyer did at number 5 after that shot by him at number 4. But let's move on a little bit. I want to talk about someone we don't talk about enough on this podcast. And that is a guy called Virat Kohli. He scored his 2nd successive 100 to win us the game. It was a 35-over game. Remember, it was a shortened game because of the rain. And he has taken India home along with Shreyas Iyer, who got out towards the end. But I mean, 43 hundreds in the game. There's been some chat about people, from people I think who don't understand the game enough to say, oh, but he didn't get 100 in the World Cup semi-final when it mattered and it counted and all of this stuff. But I'm just like, this guy is just absolutely phenomenal. He pulls out 100 after 100 after 100. And it's the hunger. I think the World Cup has actually driven him even more. What do you think, Varun? Has his performance actually improved after that World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's been from an ODI perspective, two games he's played, he scored 200s. Don't forget, like, he hit, I think, 300s against Australia, 300 against West Indies. So he's coming, like he's just the master of the ODI game. There is no denying that. Just to give you an interesting stat, he has hit the most ODI runs in a 10-year period, in any decade. He's got over 11,000 runs in the 2010s, if I may say so. And by the way, we've got another 4.5 months of cricket to go with Bangladesh, West Indies, and the South Africa series to come. He's hit 42 hundreds and 51 50s. The next best on that list is Ricky Ponting at 9,000 runs with 23 hundreds. So not only are there 2,000 less runs, there are also 20 less hundreds, which, if my math, Ashwin, is correct, that's pretty much the gap between the two, right? The 20 hundreds.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So hitting 20 hundreds, again, I don't know numbers well enough, but I would be happy to probably make a claim that says a lot of people don't hit 20 hundreds in their entire ODI career. So that's just how phenomenal he is.
Yeah, we have a sum total of 0 between the 3 of us on this podcast, right? So
I have hit 200, not 100, but yeah.
Oh, in the game that you made the 8-year-olds bowl to you the whole day, the 2-day game. Ashwin still has fond memories of. Anyway, Ashwin, I want to get your thoughts on Virat Kohli, man. Like, what is it? What is it with that guy? What flip switched in his mind? What happened to him from being a very good player? What made him probably the greatest one-day player to ever have played the game?
You just asked me what flip switched, which is like what coin cost or one of those funny slips. But anyway,
Switch
flipped. There it is. I want to just build quickly before I get into specifics on what Varun said. So he's right. Only 14 players have ever made 20 centuries or more. Just for some names of ODI players who played, over 200 games and didn't make 20 centuries. Brian Lara, 299 games, 19 centuries. Jayawardene, Jacques Kallis, Nathan Astle, Adam Gilchrist, Sehwag. None of these guys have come close to 20 centuries and all played more than 200 matches. So,
and Ashwin, sorry, just to interrupt you there, the 20 centuries is the incremental number of centuries over the second best in a decade.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like when you look at those, it's just ridiculous, right? I do also want to say, because for those who are on social media, I think people who are less involved with the game than say we are, or less attached to it, are looking exactly like you said, DJ, and said, oh, but he didn't make a World Cup century, or oh, West Indies is stat padding and he just makes all his runs against West Indies, etc. Let's be really clear about a few things, okay? Yes, West Indies series tend to be easier than bilaterals, but there's a guy who made 5 centuries in the World Cup, Rohit, who's failed against the West Indies. Dhawan, who's had a great run in the last few years, hasn't really done much against the West Indies. So these were not easy centuries. And I think if you look at the scorecard, it's easy to say, oh yeah, Kohli made another 2 centuries, whoop-de-doo. But if you watched the game, it was hot. He was sweating. They were coming in, running in hard at him. I've never heard him say, I was tired out there making the century. And he did after the first one. So anyway, that's all my rant to say. He puts in so much hard work, so much effort. I mean, he's made 9 centuries against the West Indies, yes, but he's also got 8 against Australia. He's got 5 against New Zealand, right? So he's making runs across the board, and he's just an absolute legend of the game. We are just fortunate to be able to watch him and for him to be leading our side right now.
Absolutely agree with that, Ashwin. And I think what frustrates me is that it's not just the people who tune in once every 4 years when the World Cup is on who are saying stuff like that. It's actually people who follow the game, which are like, oh, but his World Cup record isn't great. He's actually maybe got 2 World Cups ahead of him. And Sachin had a fantastic World Cup in the last one that he played. And he had a great 2003 World Cup as well. So that's kind of the age at which Kohli is at now. So for us to be criticizing him, it just shows what he's already achieved by the age of 30, right? He's age 30. He's got 2 World Cups ahead of him, arguably, if he stays fit and he stays in form. And I can totally see him actually, raising the bar so high that no one's ever actually going to get there in the one-day game at least. That said...
DJ, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, go on.
Are you predicting that he'll play the 2027 World Cup and then go and spend a couple of months with the military before coming back and deciding about his future?
Well, as long as he doesn't get run out in the semi-final, I think it's all fine, man. I just want him to win the World Cup. But, okay, I know that's the MS Dhoni comment. I'm just missing MS Dhoni, man. Like, you've seen what that wicketkeeper batsman brought us. You don't have the stability in that middle order anymore. But I'm going to move on from this. Where I wanted to go was... after the Kohli ODI chat, was the Fab Four. And we've been watching the Ashes. The second test is on at Lord's. Steve Smith was not out overnight. He kind of saved Australia from a collapse yesterday, which is Friday, the third day of the test match? Yeah, third day. Today is the 4th day. Today is Saturday, the 4th day of the test match. And he got hit on the elbow by Jofra Archer. He looked in a lot of pain. And then he continued to bat because I think he's just missed so much cricket that he can't bear the thought of missing any more cricket. And then just before we started recording this podcast, he's been hit in the head. Varun, do you want to talk our listeners through about what happened there?
Yeah, so in fact, I missed the first one where he got hit on the elbow, but this was a Jofra Archer delivery at I think 93 miles per hour, extremely quick, kind of knocked him on the helmet and then the neck. And Steve Smith literally fell flat to the ground. Everyone had a look of shock on their faces. The players ran up to him. I think the physio or whoever that person is ran out, and he was able to get up back on his feet. But I think the right call was made. The right call was made, which was to get him off, and he looked visibly upset. So DJ, coming back to your point about not wanting to miss any more cricket, he actually looked visibly upset. But it was a terrifying delivery to get, and after the whole Phil Hughes incident, in fact, I think it was almost made mandatory that, and DJ, you may know this better, to wear that, there's something on the side of your helmet that you also have to wear. And just as I was watching a replay right now, I saw he wasn't wearing that. So that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I think the English board has made it mandatory to wear it protects the back of your head, which is where Phil Hughes got hit. Right, so it actually protects the back of your head and the side of your neck.
Yes,
which is where Phil Hughes got hit. So you'll see Joe Root when he bats actually has that protection at the back of his head, and along with
and I've got the Ashes on right now, and Pat Cummins, I can see that on his helmet, but on the replay of Steve Smith, maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't see that. So that's not good.
Yeah, also with Steve Smith, who knows, it may be a superstitious thing. He's such a superstitious cricketer. Maybe he just said, I don't want to change my helmet because I've scored, 1 billion runs in this helmet and I average 105 in this helmet, so I'm not changing my helmet come what way. But it's not good seeing. It's not a good look. But Ashwin, was that the concussion rules are in, right? So who do you substitute for Steve Smith? Do you get Bradman back from his grave?
Yeah, basically irreplaceable, right? There's no way you can bring in anybody for Steve Smith. Look, let's put in context. It's the end of day 4, and because a day and a half are rained out, this match is probably almost definitely going to end in a draw. So I don't think it matters enough for them to substitute anybody in, as long as the 2 Aussies can keep batting for a couple more hours. Yeah, I will say, absolutely unbelievable cricketer. I mean, as you guys were talking, I was looking up some pictures, and it's just so terrifying to watch a batsman lying flat on the ground. It's pretty shocking, even for a bowler like Jofra Archer, like I was telling you guys before the show. he comes in, he runs hard, and his goal is to bowl fast and to bowl bouncers. It's legal. It's within what's done in the game, but you never expect that it'll actually hit somebody on the head in a way that they'll fall down. So the Ashes are tough. They're hard fought. I'm hopeful Steve Smith is okay and can keep going, but just scary stuff.
Yeah, and they're both teammates at the Rajasthan Royals, don't forget, right? So interesting times in the IPL. But and some of those second 11 players that Jofra was warming up against a couple of weeks ago will just be thanking their lucky stars they didn't get one of those. But I wanted to just play out the concussion replacement a little bit more. So if you had to have a like-for-like replacement, Varun, would you fly Kohli in? Would you fly Kane Williamson, who's playing another test match in Sri Lanka at the moment, which New Zealand look like they're going to lose? Would you fly him in? Or Joe Root? I mean, is there a Fab Four, a Fab Three? Which is the best all conditions, all format batsman in the world at the moment? Easy question.
I think it's Steve Smith. I would have flown down Kohli or Kane, but since that's not that feasible or likely, I think the only fair thing to do is to ask Joe Root to sit out as long as Steve Smith is out. I think that's a like-for-like replacement.
Ashwin, your thoughts on Steve Smith? And I want to ask you a question about his limited overs average, because the question is all conditions, all format.
Yeah, see, that's what threw me off a little, because if you ask your original question as to passport not being a barrier, if Steve Smith got injured in a concussion, what batsman do you send in? And for me, actually, that's Chiteshwar Pujara. I think if you look at the stats, he belongs in the Fab Four for tests. Yeah, he doesn't play limited overs. But anyway, for me, if Australia had the ability to pick a like-for-like, he's the guy you'd bring in. I will say, I mean, yeah, his limited overs record is not great. There's all sorts of stuff. He came in as a leg spinner to play in the side, etc. So there's so many different variables, but just absolutely a legend of the test game. And also, like Kohli, only 30 years old, so long career ahead of him.
So definite test match replacement being Cheteshwar Pujara. Very interesting choice. And there's a very interesting article on ESPN Cricket Info, which I've sent these guys. I think it says Steve Smith is the best of the Fab Four, right? So please go and have a read of that, guys. Very interesting conversation there. We'll be back straight after this break. We'll be talking about the Ravi Shashtri debate and the appointment of the Indian coach. So don't go anywhere. Listen to the break and the ad in the break, and we'll see you straight after the break. Thanks.
Hello and welcome to another awesome week at the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Don't forget to take a screenshot of whatever podcast of ours that you're listening to. Take a screenshot and put in a comment about what you think about the show, and we will reshare it from our social media pages. Here's what's in store for you this week. On the Seen and the Unseen, Amit Verma is in conversation with historian Srinath Raghavan. They talk about the complicated history of Jammu and Kashmir, the recent abrogation of Article 370, and what the future might hold. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam Gupta is joined by Vishal Sabharwal, EVP E-commerce and Digital Marketing at HDFC Life. They discuss life insurance and its importance, different investment options offered by HDFC Life, and more. On Keeping It Queer, Naveen and Farhad talk to drag queen Sushant Divgikar about his journey of representing one's community and why is it important. On our Kannada podcast Thalle Harte, Varun Ramachandra talks to Pawan Srinath about his life in political sciences and political philosophies. On Football Shootball, Gaurav, Karthik and Sivaram discuss the Manchester City vs Tottenham match. They touch upon the Neymar saga and Roberto Pereira dancing to Bazigar O Bazigar. On the Geek Fruit podcast, Jishnu and Dinkar break down and give their take on the brand new TV series The Boys. On Golgappa, host Trupti Khamkar is joined by Daniel Mendonça, a gender rights activist who talks about being sex positive and inclusiveness. He also shares his experience of representing India at the UN. On What a Player, Mikhail, Akash and Siddharth talk about Chris Gayle breaking Lara's record, Kedar Jadhav's comparison with Vicks, Rafael Nadal and his sneakers, Arsenal fans and a lot more. On Simplified, Chuck and Sriket talk to crossword setter for The Hindu Tony Sebastian about crossword puzzles and what goes into setting them. And with that, let's get you back onto your show.
Guys, the other big topic of the week is what we need to talk about, and that is Ravi Shashtri has actually been reappointed as the coach. Ashwin?
Yeah,
I know you had a strong reaction to this.
Of course, we were all shocked. Nobody expected this. It came out of no, of course, I'm just kidding, right? I mean, it was obvious from day one. It was one of our tweets that's getting some traction online these days, or since yesterday, is just how farcical this process was. Everything from the interview process to the panel to constantly claiming Kohli will have no say in the matter whatsoever, to then eventually writing a letter that showed the top 3 choices: Shastri, Mike Hassan, or should I say Mike Hassan, as they wrote it, and Tom Moody in that order. Why do you need the second and third place? What are they going to do? Like, do they get a silver and a bronze medal for coming second and third in the coaching applications? So it's just been a disappointing process. I know it works both ways, right? I know if it was an automatic reappointment for Shastri, we would have been sitting saying, what the heck, they didn't even consider anybody else. But it just feels silly and wasteful of all of our time that they, quote unquote, considered other coaches and then ended up with Shastri anyway.
Varun, Tom Moody's been rejected 4 times. Now, I know there's issues with I feel there are issues with the process, right? I feel they went through this whole rigmarole and this whole situation with the coaches, 5 of them being interviewed and presentations being made and all of that stuff. But coming to the merits of Ravi Shashtri being a coach, do you think he's a bad coach for this Indian team? And are there actually better choices that were available to the BCCI?
Yeah, so I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate on the podcast, mainly because I think we have to kind of be a little bit objective and provide both sides of the story, right? So I actually agree with Ashwin and everything he said. But I think the key thing that he pointed out is that the process itself was a farce. And a lot of us knew that before this started. And similarly, whether you're a Gary Kirsten or a Mahela Jayawardene, I'm pretty sure the fact that you knew this is how it's going to pan out means that you didn't even throw your hat in the ring. So yes, I would have loved to see somebody like a Jayawardene. I don't know too many other coaches, but I mean, he's somebody whose name comes to mind. I would have loved to see him kind of coach India. Having not put in his application, now from the existing pool of candidates that did, unfortunately, the CAC can only make a choice based on whoever has. From that perspective, I think Shastri has come out the strongest. I think his record with India proves that. I think, I don't remember the stats percentage-wise, but I don't feel like I've seen a more consistent Indian team. We have made the semi-finals. I don't necessarily know that if another coach could come in, could we make the finals? Could we win the World Cup? I'm not 100% sure of that. And so from that perspective, I think the CAC had to chose Shastri because that was the only real option they had.
Ashwin, do you think Mike Hassan, I mean, he coached New Zealand from, I think, 2012 to 2018. Do you think he would have done a better strategic job?
I 100% do, I think. But let's be really clear. Shastri's role in the side as coach is not to play a strategic role, not to set a vision. It's just to work with Kohli and partner and sort of move the agenda forward that the senior players have. So I think Mike Hassan doesn't hesitate to step out. There was a whole dispute that happened. Doesn't hesitate to speak out. There was a whole dispute that happened with Ross Taylor, where he basically told Ross Taylor, "You're not worthy of being captain. You're a fantastic player, and you'd belong on the side, but you don't deserve to lead it." And so Shastri is not going to go say that to anybody. And so I think Mike Hassan would have potentially been controversial, may have been really good, but would have been a little controversial, and that's not what the CAC decided we need right now.
Very interesting. And Tom Moody, of course, has applied for the job 4 times. So, guys, I mean, maybe 5th time lucky, 2021, when Shastri's tenure is up. So we'll have to see. Maybe Tom.
I was thinking about this. There are certain jobs, like if you think about football or soccer rather, coaching, there are certain jobs. There's the Real Madrid job, there's the Manchester United job that people will try over and over because that's the sort of pinnacle. And obviously the coach and manager is not given quite as much importance, but I would bet if you're one of the Moody's or Kirstens or these guys on the coaching circuit, this is it, right? India, if you can coach India, if you can coach India and manage to get them a World Cup win, that's the pinnacle of the sport right now.
Yeah, and I don't actually think Shastri is such a bad coach. I know he's got a lot of bad press recently for being Virat's yes man and stuff, but he's got something about him. He's obviously been a great, successful Test cricket and ODI cricket, a champion of champions, right, for India in the past. So there are no questions about his cricketing pedigree. He's been a great commentator. I mean, probably people have their own view about him. I personally always enjoyed his commentary, all his tracer bullets and his edged and taken, and it's what the doctor ordered and all of that stuff. I've always enjoyed it. Varun, your thoughts about Shastri?
No, I think the reality is, yes, I've already said, I think he's not as bad as we think he is. I think the problem is he's Virat Kohli's yes man. But DJ, you also have to consider they tried somebody who was not Virat Kohli's yes man, Anil Kumble, who we all respect a lot. And we know how that ended. So partly you can't help but think that, while they've made such a great effort to come out and say Virat Kohli was not consulted, I don't think anyone needed to consult him to know what he wanted. I don't think anyone needed to consult him to know that if Tom Moody or Mike Hassan came in, there could have been problems. I would say more than 50% chance there would have been problems. And Virat Kohli is not going anywhere. So, like I said, I think the process is messed up, but the outcome we all knew.
Yeah, and the outcome was almost predetermined, wasn't it, Ashwin? Ashwin, one last question on this whole coaching situation. Was there a scenario where Shastri could have remained involved with the team management as perhaps a team director or team manager, and you brought in somebody for the strategic and technical side of things? Obviously, they're the support coaches, which the CAC will also play a part in appointing, but could we have got someone in on the strategic side to try and better the Indian strategy and team selection and things like that?
And Ashwin, do you think he should have been the CNO of the team?
What's the N? Chief
Nightlife Officer.
Nightlife. I thought it would be a CBO, Chief Booze Officer or something. That was close.
This is the Yo-Yo Honey Singh test again.
Yeah, for sure. CNO is Ravi Shastri's title. Maybe we can get that trending on Twitter. Yeah, look, DJ, you're right. That option existed. Obviously, they chose not to go with it. I think everything Varun said is spot on in terms of the role, like having tried different leaders, etc. We talked about this when Delhi came up. Now, Shreyas Iyer is a young captain, and that's the only reason Ponting and Ganguly as these loud, outspoken people worked in the background. I think with Kohli, you need somebody who will work with him. So I would have loved to see somebody appointed for strategy or vision. Didn't happen. I do think you mentioned something interesting, which is the support coaches. I think they play such a critical role, whether it's Sanjay Bangar or Bharat Arun. So hopefully that goes in a direction we want, and we have some really strong tactical thinkers to help ensure the batting and bowling and fielding are at the level we need them to be.
Awesome. So I think that's the conversation on the coach done. So there are two big tournaments that Ravi Shastri will be looking to help India win by 2021. The two T20 World Cups, one in Australia and one in India. Guys, the Test Championship is about to start, and I just wanted to talk very briefly about India's first test against the West Indies, right? Are you looking forward to that Test Championship and the Test series after all this white ball cricket? Ashwin?
I cannot wait to see India back in whites. I'm excited. I'm ready for it. My friends who watch cricket, who are less attached, half attached to the game, who watch the T20s and ODIs, are shocked that I'm excited to see tests against the West Indies, but I just cannot wait. I'm so looking forward to seeing Pujara batting. I hope Mayank gets his shot. I hope Hanuma Vihari gets a shot. I don't know what's going to happen with the Punt versus Saha decision. I think we decided earlier we think Punt is going to play. And then for me, most excitingly, Bumrah, Shami, and Ishant bowling in tandem. I just cannot wait. So I'm so excited for next Thursday, the 22nd, which is when the first test match against the West Indies kicks off.
And Varun, what are your thoughts on numbers on backs and names on backs? Do we have a strong view about whites having names on them?
Not really. As I'm watching it right now in the Ashes, I think it looks fine. It doesn't make any difference to my life at all. So yeah, I think you got to keep trying different stuff, and this is something where it's not making me say this is amazing, but it's like, okay, yeah, that's not bad, so why not?
Okay, very interesting. I just want to talk about a couple of team members, one from the West Indies as well as one from the Indian side. The wicketkeeper spot, and I know we spoke about this maybe 3 or 4 episodes ago, right? Riddhiman Saha or Rishabh Pant, have our thoughts changed on that since we spoke about this last on the podcast, which was just after the World Cup, I think? Varun, is Pant going to make the first 11, and why should he make it over Riddhiman Saha, who's done well in the India A games, remember, and is probably a better keeper?
Yeah, Pant will definitely make it. He should make it. He's the future. And why? He's the only Indian wicketkeeper who's hit Test centuries in Australia and England. So I don't need to say more than that.
And Ashwin, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, we shared a stat last week. He's also scored the highest T20 international score by an Indian wicketkeeper. So, I think he's going to start, but I don't think he'll have as long a leash in this 3-test series. It's only 2 tests. So he'll probably play both. Saha, unfortunate to miss out, but I think Saha will keep traveling with the squad. And if Pant, they have a long, long home season ahead of them, and it's not easy to keep against spinners at home in India. So if Pant is struggling behind the wickets, then Saha will get a shot.
I actually think Saha is going to play the game, because he's a better keeper, firstly. Secondly, I think Pant needs I think stuff seems to be handed to Pant on a platter almost, because he's the future and he's an attacking batsman and he's got intent and content and talent and whatever else, right? But he needs to really like put his head down and want it badly. And I think a stint out of the Test team carrying drinks will make him want it more almost. And obviously he's got more years ahead of him. I think it's quite unfair on Saha, who was, remember, the incumbent keeper and is a more dependable batsman in the Test format almost. Yes, Pant is an attacking batsman. He's got hundreds outside India, one in Australia and one in a losing cause in England. But I think Saha's got 100 in the West Indies the last time he came here. So I actually think Saha will play. I don't know whether that... I think that's the way it should happen, but maybe it's not going to happen. We'll see when the Test starts whether I'm right or wrong. But the player I wanted to speak about from the West Indies team is Rahim Cornwall, right? And he got selected. Ashwin, do you know about this guy? What do you think of him?
Yeah, we talked about him a little bit last week. This guy's an absolute tank. He's a huge guy. I think he's 6'5", and yeah, just good. But apparently had an absolutely rock star domestic season. Took a ton of wickets with the ball. So I think he's an exciting player. I think he bats a little bit too. So let's see how that goes. I'm always happy to see good new talent coming in. He's only 26 years old. He's an off spinner. So it'll be good to see him play. I mean, he's unfortunate to make his debut probably against the batting lineup that plays spin the best in the world at the moment. But let's see how he does. Let's hope he does well, but not too well.
Yeah, and the bit that Ashwin left out was that he's also 140 kilos. So the West Indies selectors have already said that he's going to lose weight. 6'5", 140 kilos. His t-shirts look fairly small and short for him. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes in the Test format. Obviously, the West Indies have some good off-spinners in Roston Chase, who played pretty well last time. He's a good batsman as well. And yeah, guys, I think that's what I just wanted to mention. Ashwin, have you got an update on the Ashes, perhaps?
Yeah, I during the 30-40 minutes we've been recording this, I just wanted to share that after Smith, we talked about, went off because of being hit in the head, he has walked back on. So in the 85th over, Peter Siddle was dismissed, and to a rousing applause, Steve Smith came back on, hit 2 fours in his first 2 balls. So it looks like he's now moved on to 92. By the time you guys hear this episode, we'll know how the Test match ended. But great to see him come back. Obviously, a very, very positive sign that he was cleared by the physio to walk back out. So glad to see that. We love watching Smith, and he is 8 runs away from his 3rd consecutive Ashes century.
Oh my God. I just wanted to actually ask, I forgot to ask you guys. Varun, is Steve Smith actually going to push Kohli to better his game and lift his game in this West Indies Test series? Because Kohli must be watching this, right? He's number 1 in the world right now. He's still number 1 in the rankings. But Steve Smith is closing that gap very, very quickly.
Yeah, he will. And that's the beauty of having great cricketers across nations playing at the same time, right? You are going to be in a situation where there is a healthy competition. You want to outdo each other. So I'm very happy with this, actually.
Yeah, and I think last summer when we watched Kohli bat, I think there was no doubt in my mind that he was the best batsman in the world. But Steve Smith has come back so hungry for these runs. It is just, you can see the hunger in his eyes when he goes out to bat, and he doesn't want to go off the field. He's back on there, even though he's been hit in the head. I mean, I hate to say this, but I'm becoming a fan of his batting, despite the extremely ugly way in which he leaves the ball, which is another argument that you're never going to have a like-for-like replacement if he ever goes off the field, because no one can leave the ball in that extremely crab-like, strange, odd, wand-waving situation that he does, which is almost unnecessary because the ball's gone and then he's still waving his bat around and he looks kind of disgusted. He turns his bum on the ball out. It's just very, very strange. But apart from the aesthetics, I think I've become a fan of the man and his desire to just score runs. And I just find that I've never seen anything like that. And when people say that he's the next Bradman, maybe he is. And go and check out his stats in that article that we mentioned. Anyway, guys, I think that's all we had to chat about this week. We will definitely be back next week when the Test match would have started. So we'll be covering that as well. As always, we've got loads of comments from you guys on Twitter this week, because obviously there's been a lot of stuff going on. So keep those coming in. We're at One Tip One Hand. We're on Facebook at One Tip One Hand. We're on Instagram at One Tip One Hand as well. Write us an email, contact@onetiponehand.com. It's great to always hear from you. Always good to know that there's someone out there listening to the podcast and reacting to it. If you agree with us, tell us. If you don't agree with us, tell us, fine. We'll listen to you and we'll come back to you and we'll tell you why we disagree with you. But anyway, guys, it's a wrap this week. It's been great speaking to you and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Look, up in the internet. It's a meme. No, it's a cat video. No, it's the Geek Fruit Podcast.
That's right. We interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, the Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar, and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix, and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.
Hello, everybody. We have a brand new daily podcast we're working on with Bloomberg Quint. All you need to know provides the top news on business, markets, and the economy so that you can stay ahead of the curve. Tune in every morning on BloombergQuint.com, the IVM podcast app, or wherever you get your podcast from.